Well, greetings. For those of you on YouTube, this is LMS Tactical, and if you're listening on the podcast, this is LMS Tactical Radio. Thank you for joining me. I've got lots to get to, and I'm going to try and cram it into as short as time as possible. So follow along, and hopefully I don't get too scatterbrained here. Somebody sent me, a friend of mine sent me a video, and the video had to do with the whole COVID-19 and the lockdown taking place and the deployment of the South African Defense Force, South African National Defense Force in South Africa. Now, most of you have probably heard of the name Brendy Wells. Brendy Wells is the person who was being interviewed on this video that I was sent. And just in case you don't know, Brendy is a South African expatriate, and she is married to a guy by the name of John B. Wells, who has a radio show called Caravan to Midnight, I think it is. Caravan to Midnight. If you haven't heard of that show, go check it out on YouTube. You'll know you're on the right channel when you hear a very hypnotic, deep voice from John B. Wells. Very excellent show, excellent content, and let them know that you heard about them. If it's your first time visiting, let them know that you heard of them by way of LMS Tactical, or Mike from LMS Tactical. That would be me, and I would appreciate that, and I'm sure they would appreciate it. So basically what Brendy, her topic was, and I'll give you the platform that I heard her on before we get done here, but she was talking about some information that she stumbled onto, or somebody sent her, that had to do with an operation that was planned within the South African National Defense Force. And the name of the operation is, what the hell is it? I can't remember now. It's Operation, why am I drawing a blank here? Operation Chariot. So, actually, there's a video here. If you look at it, it's called, if you were to go to YouTube and look up Red Alert COVID Lockdown Operation Chariot, and then put Brendy Wells, you might be able to find the video on YouTube if they haven't taken it down yet. But I'll have all of that in the description of the video where you can find it. But give it a listen, and Brendy basically draws a correlation between the upcoming, and I don't want to do it an injustice by giving wrong details, so I'm kind of lightly paraphrasing the whole thing. But this Operation Chariot, I don't believe in coincidences, and apparently it's named after a World War II operation by the same name, Operation Chariot, that had to do with the extermination of, and for those of you on the podcast, I'm making air quotes, the extermination of racists. Now, we all know, or should know by now, that the theme in South Africa is that the majority of African blacks are being completely abused by this tiny minority of whites who are all racist. And of course, we all know that that's a political bullshit agenda that has been ongoing since the blacks have had the country handed to them at the end of apartheid. So they use this whole racial divide as for various excuses to get all kinds of things, keep the people divided, and to basically use and abuse the population and have a scapegoat, not unlike Adolf Hitler, since we're talking about an operation that had its origins in Nazi Germany. But this is, if you haven't heard about this and you're in South Africa, you need to learn about it, because according to Brendy, this is an operation that is due to take place within the next week or two. And as I sit here, it is April 7th. Now, in case you just arrived from another planet, of course, we're all in one stage of lockdown or another, no matter where we are in the country, due to this either extremely deadly virus or slightly exaggerated virus, or this entire plot to deceive most of humanity. Not sure, more on that later. But whatever the case is, the South African National Defense Force, the military in South Africa, has in fact been deployed. And I think it was day one, and there were atrocities taking place along the Cape. And the South African National Defense Force is is not a premier military. It's not the military that it once was before the end of apartheid. It is staffed with people who, a large majority of them, have tested positive with AIDS. They have limited to zero knowledge of what it is that they're doing in terms of using their equipment, and this can be established through videos of them and various training exercises. I mean, it's an embarrassment to the country of South Africa, and it's also it shows a great lack of discipline and lack of control. If you look at some of the footage that I've seen and that I have access to, during their first day of deployment, they were kicking citizens, slapping them. There was a report of a shooting or two, at least one allegation of rape, and this is all on the first day. Now you can imagine what's going to happen when things start to digress in South Africa, which they will, because of the very nature of the South African government, alleged government, and the so-called offshoots of the government, the EFF, and likewise, who have such hatred in their heart and are just looking for any reason and any catalyst to launch the final stage of the slaughter of the white people. And I think that's what Brendy was getting into when she's referring to this Operation Chariot. It can't be a coincidence that it was named after a similar operation by another group of fanatics who were trying to eradicate a group that they had identified as racist. She draws another correlation between that and the nightmare that happened in Rwanda. I think it was Rwanda she was talking about. But there's areas all throughout Africa that have experienced this type of total annihilation and genocide of a minority population. And it seems like things are lining up. All of the farm attacks and the racially motivated murders and crimes, all of that put aside, it seems like there is an increased tempo to get to a final crescendo of absolute horrific bloodshed and murder. And if that's the case, and I haven't researched this Operation Chariot, I wanted to get this information out so you can start to do your own research, especially those of you who are going to be affected because of where you are geographically. Assuming you live in South Africa, you're going to want to know about this. And so it's incumbent upon you to look and research this stuff and find out so that you're not blindsided. One of the things that Brendy said that I agreed with was, at the very least, we need to get this put out over the internet and in every vehicle that we can use to get this information out, so that there can be no denial when all is said and done that, like back during the Holocaust when the Jews were slaughtered, there were so many people that said, and there was plausible deniability about that perhaps we didn't know about it. We had no idea this was going on. Well, things are different. Times have changed, and we are aware of it now. If you're hearing my voice, you're aware of at least a little bit of it, and you can look further and check out the information that I'm going to direct you to. Actually, I'll do that right now. Let's see where that is. Let's see if I can find that. I will show you where this operates. Here we go. So basically, the video that I saw Brendy on that was sent to me, I'm going to give you, write this down. This is a web address. It's basically all connected, different views with different agendas.blogspot.com. And the person that runs that looks like it's a guy by the name of Michael Gaither, Gaither, Gaither. And check out that video. And that's it's right there. It's called COVID Lockdown Operation Chariot. So check that out and see what you think about that. And at the very least, give it some consideration. Now, I get asked all the time by people in my world, Mike, what do you think about what's happening with this coronavirus, this Chinese virus, this COVID-19, whatever the fuck we're calling it now? Do you think it's a bunch of bullshit? Do you think it's a real thing? Do you think it's an excuse for the government to enforce or to enact and start martial law? Do you think there's another agenda behind this? Do you think there's something else going on? My answer is all of the above. Yes, 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 and yes. And I know that sounds really weird, but I'll try my best to clarify it. Look, as I've said from the beginning, clearly there's more going on than meets the eye. I do believe that there is a real virus that has deadly consequences for some people. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But I also am convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that we are being manipulated by a conglomerate of different people with various agendas, not the least of which is the Western media. I mean, if you just takes not just a slight cursory look at the situation, and you can tell that there was an acceleration beyond the norm, in my opinion, anyways. I mean, you look at when we first heard about the virus in Wuhan, and then when it finally, the very first case in the United States was detected in Washington State. From that moment, it wasn't quite 3 weeks, not even 3 weeks, before it had literally manifested itself in almost every state in the country and into Canada. And as far as it's all around the world now, with maybe just a couple of exceptions. I think there's one spot on the top of Mount Everest that they've declared COVID-19 free. I'm being facetious. But the point is with such a rapid spread and with such quick deployment of the military in countries like South Africa, the United States has its National Guard being deployed, and the really quick lockdown and the absolute willingness for all of us to give up so many of our rights, at least here in the United States. And I'm torn between the questions, well, is it better to be safe than sorry? And I have to tell you, I believe that there is a time to be safe and there's a time to be concerned, but there should be no theory that justifies the giving up of just blanket giving up our rights, our constitutional rights of freedom. So if I stumble around when I talk about that, it's because I still don't know, and neither do you, and neither does anybody that's giving you information. It's so easy to manipulate a population of a town, a city, a state, a country, and now the world. It's so easy to confuse us and manipulate us. All you have to do is scare the shit out of a certain amount of people, and they're going to run around wearing masks and gloves and lock themselves in the house for 3 weeks. I guess we've been in about 3 weeks now. And I'm sure that before long there'll be Humvees rolling up and down my street, and slowly the vice squeezes, and as it stands now, we can go walk the dog. Maybe next week we won't be able to walk the dog. And if that happens, you have to ask yourself, what is that all about? Is that really predicated on protecting people from a virus that has nominal consequences when compared to anything else that we've had, which we could pull out the various flu epidemics and the things that have killed so many more people in this country and around the world? Are we really being prophylactic in terms of just wanting to stop the spread of this deadly disease, or is there something else at hand? Are we being manipulated to stay off the streets and to stay in our homes while the good guys work to root out these child sex predators and these human traffickers, that have seeped from the woodwork all around the world, all the way from the palace in the United Kingdom, the royal family, to the media and to the Hollywood elitist here? Is that part of it? I mean, I hear these things and they make sense. They sound legit. And the more you listen and the more you research it, the more you find your way through the whole, the Tom Hanks theories, the Ellen DeGeneres theories, the Oprah Winfrey's involved, the Bill Gates, the people resigning or all quitting at the same time, the fucking Pizzagate, the Epstein murder, suicide bullshit. The more you look at that, the harder it is to deny that every bit of that makes sense. And then, you can only hope if you have a shred of decency. I certainly would hope that that's what's going on. That would be a great thing if it turned out that it was actually the good guys that were uprooting this New World Order bullshit, people that were going to fucking try and destroy the whole planet with get rid of the old people like myself and have a planet full of sex slaves and who knows what. I mean, the theories are endless. But there's the rational part of me that thinks that's a little far-fetched, Mike. It can't really be that fucked up. So I bounce back and forth, And what do I do? How do I handle it? You know what? I went to the post office today and I wore my little mask and I wore my rubber gloves. And a large part of me was thinking, man, there ain't no fucking virus out here. This is bullshit. And the other part of me was saying, yeah, no, but there is a virus out here, and you don't want to be an idiot and get killed because of it, or bring it back to your family and kill them. Inner conflict, it's. I wonder if I'm the only one that's going through this. So I look at it as, well, better safe than sorry. I'd rather err on the side of caution in terms of, protecting myself and trying not to drag a virus into the house that I'm going to regret later. And then if you saw behind me, I don't know if you can see me behind me, I've been reloading shotgun shells and kind of just making good use of my time, getting ammunition and things ready, not being paranoid about it, not planning for some, big battle against, an oppressive government or a zombie apocalypse, but just being prudent and giving things enough time and concern so that you don't have to make plans in the midst of a disaster, if that makes any sense. Now, I can't help but notice, and I wonder, leave in the comments if any of you have noticed this or are aware of this, but I always say I don't believe in coincidences, and here I was going through Netflix the other night, and I come across, first of all, there's a multitude of movies that have to do with plagues and viruses. Now, I'm sure that's probably because they think people want to watch that shit as they're locked into their homes, hiding from a freaking virus. I don't know. But what I found interesting was I clicked on one, and what the hell was it called? I can't even remember what it was called. It wasn't Contagion. It was basically, the plot was, it's a Netflix movie, and it was these two brothers and these two girls traveling across America trying to get to a beach house that brothers used to go to during a vacation. Because there was this virus. Now here's the kicker. The movie was made in 2019. And it had to do with a virus that was extremely contagious. And throughout the movie, whenever they were going to be near somebody, they put on their little N95 mask and their little surgical gloves. And I thought, wow, that's amazing, that they made a movie like this last year. And in this case, it was transmitted from human to human, and they had to be careful if any blood or human fluids got on them. They pretty much were a write-off. And there was one scene in particular that just, you can't help but have your jaw drop. They pull into this town, everybody's evacuated, and there's a corpse hanging from a streetlight, and there's a cardboard sign on his torso, and it's an Asian corpse, and it said on the cardboard, "The Chinks brought it here." That's a derogatory a word for Asian. It's a bad reference to Asians. The word chink is. But is the correlation a coincidence that in this 2019 movie they're alleging they're depicting empty towns and people with N95 masks on and people dying from this contagious disease, with the allegation being that the Chinese or the Asians brought it to America? There are like 5 or 6 of them showing right now. And then things that I haven't substantiated yet or verified, that there were tabletop exercises that took place a month before this thing broke loose, having to do with members from the United Nations and different countries talking about what would we do if there was a virus and blah, 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 blah. Not unusual in and of itself, but the timing is everything. I mean, it's the same type of thing that causes us to, any of us that have looked at the 9/11 thing, and of course we all on the right side of our brain, we know for sure that what we saw is what happened, but on the left side, we still can't help but pretend to not notice the fact that they did have a simulated drill about airplanes hitting the World Trade Center. You start to read this shit and you start to look into it, and you either drive yourself insane or you just move on and try not to give too much credit to anything in particular and just stay as prepared as you can. And that's kind of where I'm at with this thing. I'm going to, what the old saying is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time is the answer. So instead of trying to grasp all of the possibilities of what's happening, and I share this with you in hopes that maybe that you can get something out of this or create a variation of this that works for you. But instead of trying to grasp the totality of all of the possibilities and the endless insanity and the scariness and the darkness of And, I mean, there's a lot of things to get freaked out about. I mean, let's face it, this is not going to be the last time that this country or any country's hit by an attack like this, because now all enemies of everybody have seen how easy it is to completely grind a country to its knees. So if the one thing you've learned is if we're all still alive in another few months, you better stock up on things like masks and things that you needed and didn't have during this crisis. Let this be a practice run for you, with serious consequences if in fact this virus is as deadly and prevalent as they say. But what I do is I look at it and I drill into something more manageable, which is what is best for my family and my castle right here. So I make sure that my castle and my camp, whatever it is, if it's my house or my freaking trailer, my mobile home, my apartment, whatever, what do I have to sustain myself? The more that I have, and the less I'm dependent on something outside of my perimeter, the better off I am. So I want to talk about food. I want to talk about water, and actually in the reverse order. I want water first, I want food second, and I want protection. Now, not everybody can have self-defense weapons like we do here so far in America, but there's always ways to defend yourself, and I've made other videos, and there's plenty of other videos about that. You have to use your imagination, and the bottom line is if you got to go out and whittle a fucking spear out of a stick and a stone, then that's what you got to do. Remember, it was used in Full Metal Jacket. It's not a gun or a firearm that kills. It's a hard heart. And sometimes you got to have a hard heart to get through something. It all comes down to this. How bad do you want to live, or how bad do you want to protect your loved ones, your dogs, your cats, your kids, your family, whatever. So always try to keep in mind, what I do is I don't fear the death. What I fear is having someone else make that decision for me. So for me, it's a matter of I'm going to protect that which is mine, and I have that concentric rings where the innermost ring is my family and my pets, and then the second ring is my property, and then the third ring is my outer property, and the fourth ring is my neighborhood. And you just do what you can do. You can't solve every problem, and if you go to bed and wake up thinking about all of the variations and the possibilities and the what ifs, you're not living your life at all. You're just existing, and you're stressing out, and you're being no good to anybody around you. So I don't know if any of this makes any sense. I always feel like I'm rambling when I talk like this because I don't turn on this thing and read a script. I turn it on and let whatever comes out come out, and sometimes it comes out smoother than other times. And this felt rather bumpy, but I hope you got something out of it. And let me know what you guys want to hear and what you guys are concerned about, what questions you have. Let me know in the comments, and I'll try to address those. I also am still looking for people that would like to be interviewed. Now, before this whole virus thing, I was focusing on survivors of some of the attacks, the racially motivated attacks in South Africa. But if you want to be interviewed and tell the world, share with the world some of your challenges and some of your stories and some of what's going on in your life, whether it's related to life in South Africa or life in the United States under this, or how about coming on and talking with me about some of the theories you have? Should be no holds barred. I don't judge. Anything's possible. I'm telling you at this point, if Trump came on the TV tonight and announced that he was going to turn the podium over to the head alien in charge of the Pleiades sector, it wouldn't surprise me. So if you have something that you think you'd like to talk about, then either email me your proposal of what the show idea is. This is who I am. This is what I'd like to talk about. And you can email me at airborne, AIRBORNE 80, airborne80@gmail.com. And give me a short couple of sentences about what it is you'd like to talk about, a little bit about who you are, and I'll make that happen if I decide to do so. And in the meantime, I hope everybody stays safe, sound, and well. And thank you for hanging out for how long we've been doing this. This is 25 minutes, so that's not bad. That's not too long and not too short. You guys stay safe. Listen, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to YouTube channel LMS Tactical. And I'm also still trying to grow this baby, the podcast. So let's not forget about Last Man Standing or LMS Tactical Radio on Podbean. Share that and help me try and grow that. And yeah, I'll see you guys on the next show. In the meantime, you guys stay safe. LMS Tactical, I'm out.